host along with my hi everyone co-hosts and co-founders and comadres Rosario Lawrence and Chantal Camarillo. And Chantal, Rosario, and I just happen to be in the mortgage industry for several decades. No one's counting. And together we decided to do LeadHER Talks. This journey came about the midst of the pandemic. We wanted to start an open forum for women and those supporting women who we can empower, enrich, educate on relevant topics that hold meaning to us. So today's topic is under the empowerment pillar. We are here discussing the celebration of Black History Month in February. And the person today, we have a dynamic influencer, and he is recognized um, in the finance industry, but we really want to talk about all the importance of the Black contribution to history, which is phenomenal. So we have a phenomenal guest today at LeadHER Talks, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing him as one of the most important African American leaders in the finance industry, who just happens to be a staunch advocate of diversity and inclusion. He's my amazing manager, and he happens to be a mentor to the three of us and a friend. So I have the distinct honor of introducing Lenny McNeill. Now, a little bit about Lenny. Lenny has more than 35 years of service in the finance industry. He has held executive and senior leadership positions in both in banking and in mortgage. His knowledge and experience in sales development, multicultural strategies, and implementation allow him to address the housing sustainability and affordability issues on a national level. As a member of U.S. Bank Co-Mortgage executive leadership, Lenny leads a team that applies advanced market analytics to enhance affordable homeownership programs throughout the country. This creates a long-term growth and benefit to U.S. business lines and to all communities that we serve. Lenny has been named a Black professional and Savoy magazine as one of the most influential 100 African American executives in corporate America. He is the immediate past chairman of NAREP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, Corporate Project Governors, and he has board affiliations with national organizations such as ARIA, the Asian Real Estate Association of America, and NAREB, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. He is a gifted speaker. He is actually one of the best speakers that I know in the industry, who combines his thought and experience to inspire and motivate numerous companies and organizations throughout the nation. Lenny, again, is one of the best speakers that we have known, and it is an honor that he is here with us today. We want to thank you, Lenny, for joining us on this important topic of celebration of Black History Month.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Lenny. First question for today and for our viewers. What does Black history mean to you, and how does that impact you?
Whoa. Okay. Let's see if I can shorten the answer. You know, it's hard not to personalize something as significant as Black History Month, especially being a Black male, obviously trying to quote unquote make it, trying to survive. The one thing that I do think about is the messaging behind Black History Month and its intent. I think the intent from the very beginning was to make sure that all Americans understood and were aware the struggles and the many plights that Black Americans went through, have gone through in its totality as it relates to doing what they could for freedom and equality. The month is a constant reminder of that. In addition to that, on a more positive note, I think what it represents for me is an opportunity and a time to celebrate. So often, the things that tend to draw attention when you think about, especially as of late, it has a tendency to be negative. There are things that are not the most positive, but there are so many wonderful accomplishments that have been done by Black Americans and will be done by Black Americans that have affected everyone of all colors, of all races. And, you know, when I take a step back, I'm extremely proud about that. I also think the other thing is it's also a time to reflect, a time to reflect on those who have paved the way before me. So many have made sacrifices, so many have uh, gone up against so many challenges that you and I probably could never, ever imagine, what it is they had to face, but yet and still they did. And so when I think about those sacrifices and the trials and tribulations they went through for me, I'm inspired. I'm motivated. I feel as though that there is an obligation that I have to do the very same thing for those who come behind me. So in a nutshell, I think in its entirety, that's what the month really means to me. And I am one who truly celebrates it. I celebrate each and every day of it, and I do that because, it's that reminder that I have purpose. I have value. I am a Black man in America. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's trying. Yes, there will be obstacles, but you know what? You got to keep on keeping on. That's the message. And hopefully I, get an opportunity to share that message with other people.
Thank you so much, Lenny.
Thank you, Lenny. That is beautiful. And we've all had the opportunity to know you. We've been very lucky to know you and have worked in the same organization and in our industry. It's a very small world. It's been motivating for all of us and inspiring to see you really take your career and your influence to where you are today. So for our LeadHER audience, please describe the journey to an executive level position for one of the nation's largest financial institutions as an executive of consumer and home lending. And also, as you reflect on your journey, what would you say transformed or impacted you to be the influential leader you are today?
Wow. Well, I guess the first thing I'll say that the journey is long, and it has been long, but it has been gratifying all the same. If I think about my journey, like most people, if they're honest, they sort of fell into the financial services industry. I mean, I don't know that anyone leaves college and says, I'm going to go work in the mortgage business. I don't think that happens. Maybe, a few, but I was certainly not one who had a plan for that. It was really more of a, okay, they want to pay me, I'll take the money until I figure out what I really want to do. And that's kind of how the journey began. But, even though I have spent the majority of my career on the consumer lending side of things, more specifically home mortgage, that's not where I started. I mean, I actually started my career on the bank side, and I entered banking as a management trainee. My first real job after going through the training program was I was an assistant branch manager. And everybody is familiar with what that role is. And amazingly, as I worked my way up the ladder, now keep in mind, this was in the 80s. So I wasn't fortunate to have mentors who looked like me during that time. So I had to kind of pick and choose what I was going to use as influence and what I was going to use to shape my career. I think about 8 years into my career, I think at the time I was a regional manager in banking. I was managing about 12 bank branches, and honestly, I thought I had a pretty good job. But, I was inspired by a gentleman who, was a dear friend, and he was in the industry, and I never really knew what he did, but I valued his wisdom. And he told me, he said, you need to find a job. You need to find a career that's meaningful to you. He goes, otherwise, it just becomes a job. And you want to make sure that whatever it is that you do, it's much more than a job. It gives you an opportunity to give back. And I knew that as a regional manager on the bank side, although I loved it, I didn't quite feel as though I was really, doing my part in giving back as much as I'd like to. And he said, think about the mortgage side of the business. And I knew nothing about mortgage, couldn't even spell mortgage on a good day. But the reality of it is it was, I guess that's where I was destined to go. And amazingly, I did not have what you would call a lateral transformation, because here I was a regional manager on the bank side, but there was no way they were going to make me a regional manager in mortgage because I didn't know it. So my first job was as an underwriter. And I'm glad I had an opportunity to start there because it gave me the foundation. It gave me the tools. It gave me the understanding of how to qualify a loan and to really understand how hard some people work for their income and that kind of stuff. And then from there, I worked my way through and became a branch manager, a regional manager, a divisional manager, and I was lucky enough to run retail. But through that journey, it really dawned on me that the best part of it was being able to make a dream become a reality. And that was with home ownership, and then helping those who were less fortunate or overlooked and underserved. And that became my passion. And so when I found a niche where, quite honestly, I could do both, then I knew that that was the place that I belonged. And I've told people it's almost like, although I've never been in that role, I've heard ministers and people who are spiritual leaders say that they get a calling, that this was where they were supposed to be. And I say it's very similar. I think I was called to do this. This is my pulpit, if you will. And, you know, the congregation is all of those folks that are looking for a home and not just getting that home, but staying in that home. And so that's been my journey. And it's been a very exciting one. And the best part about my journey is it's not over. It's not over because I'm still passionate about what I do. I'm still excited each and every day. And the best part about it now, in addition to helping people get into the homes, is leaving a legacy for those who will come after me. There's a saying I always use now when I'm talking to younger generation folks. I say, it's my job to leave the attic door open and the ladder down. That's my role, you know, and even though I didn't have someone do that for me, it is my obligation and my responsibility to do that for others so that they may continue the work that I've started and that I'm doing. So that would be my answer.
That is so beautifully said. And one of the things that I take away from your response is also that, you know, in the journey, sometimes you're looking at opportunity and not realizing that making a shift or pivoting a little bit is going to take you to something even greater, where your passions are going to really come about. I mean, it's just such a beautiful way you answered it, because many of us, when we're looking at, hey, why did this happen? Or should I go down this path in this direction? And then to just, at the end of the day, it's your calling is just beautiful. You're living it. And for a lot of us to really look at that as the journey continues to evolve, and it's going to be great. Right?
And the key is to have no fear. You know, it's, if you truly believe in something, then, you know, follow your heart. And yeah, you know, as the saying goes, sometimes you got to take 2 steps back to get 1 giant step ahead. And that's okay, because in that process, you're still developing. You're also maturing. You're gaining additional knowledge that maybe you didn't have before. When I think about my journey, I know that I am a better man, I'm a better manager, I'm a better leader today because of those additional stops that I made along the way. You know, that's like taking on additional personalities, you know, that I can count on when I need them. So my message to anyone listening is have no fear. trust your instincts, trust your heart, and, pursue it with passion and never let go.
Well said. But Lenny, I will say you're absolutely a testament. I mean, I'm a living testament of the fact that you pay it forward for many Latinos, people of color within this industry that I personally know, and me personally, that you definitely have left that attic door, that ladder down for us to advance. And so, you pay it forward. And that's the beautiful thing that I do acknowledge, and many others as well. So thank you for doing that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
True. And you mentioned your calling. I remember distinctively when I first met you. I don't know if it was over 15 years ago. We were in a policy conference in DC. I'd never met you, but here you were speaking as an executive at a previous company, and we were your audience, we were your congregation and your members, and you left an impression on me. You spoke from the heart, you talked about the importance of home ownership, and that was it for me. I went, out there to congratulate you and say, Mr. McNeill, thank you so much. And that was that seed that you planted in me at that point years ago, that to this day, I'm so glad that I, speak to you, and you've been an amazing mentor to all three of us. And we thank you for that from the bottom of our hearts. But as a young buck back then, 15 years ago, what advice would you give another person of color to aspire that corporate ladder? Because you yourself are one of the highest ranking African Americans at U.S. Bank and within the finance industry. And how do you help others, aspire and climb that ladder of success to go into the attic per se? So,
well, first and foremost, I think like in any other situation, you lead by example. We are very much in a society today where people are very visual. And I always use my daughter as an example, so, I'm one of those dads where I have a 26-year-old daughter that is always reminding me that, I either need to step up my game, or I need to readjust my game, or, whatever. But, when you think about, people of color who are sitting in executive seats, it's far and few between. You don't necessarily see that. And my daughter is always reminding me that, hey, Dad, you got to get more people up there. So every day I do my best to lead by example, to make sure that those who are aspiring, or those who have the dreams, can actually see the destination. It's a lot easier to follow, a path when you can actually see the end of it. And not everybody, gets that luxury. And the other thing is, you have to remember that, that journey is with purpose. It's not just about you. You are blazing that journey for the benefit of others. So what you have to make sure that you do is consistently and constantly reaching back to have a conversation, reaching back to have an educational moment, reaching back just to give an attaboy or a great job, or don't give up the fight. Or, sometimes it's even tough love. Yeah, you got knocked down on your hindquarters, but get up, because you're going to get knocked down again. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to always go your way. There are going to be opportunities that you thought you should have gotten, and you won't. And I will tell you, that was probably the hardest part for me in my journey. Looking at roles that I wanted, applying for them, and not getting them. Because the mind has a way of playing tricks on you. It's like, am I good enough? Have I done enough? Or is it because of the way I look? You start to go through each one of those boxes. And then eventually, you realize that, well, one thing's for sure. I can't change the way I look. This is who I am. At some point, you have to own it. You have to own the person that you are. So the only thing that you can control is obviously your results. Am I being the best leader I can be? Am I putting up the numbers? Am I standing out in the crowd? So I'm going to make the decision tough for whomever it is making that decision, because I'm gonna hit it out of the park each and every time. So I would hope that that's the message for everyone listening. Just know that if you maintain a direction, you obviously keep your faith, you can do anything. You can absolutely do anything. And don't allow a couple of no's to deter you. The no's should just fire you up, quite frankly. It should put a fire in your, what, and
Belly.
keep on moving. Absolutely.
Absolutely right, Lenny. And with that, since we're all in the mortgage industry, right? And so we know that in terms of home ownership, there's been certain demographics that have actually probably have heard some no's, right? And we want to know what is your vision, your strategy when it comes to advancing, especially in particular, the 50-year gap of home ownership that has plagued Black Americans. And with that too, just Black home ownership growth, right, has been minimal in comparison to other groups. And I'm curious, we're all curious, our viewership, like your commitment and how can we all be part of that solution as well?
Well, to your point, it saddens me when I think about the disparity that has taken place for minorities as a whole, but more specifically for Black America. The home ownership has wavered in the 41-42% for a very long time. Even 50 plus years ago, it was actually at 43%. What's kind of interesting and what really hurts me is when I think about, the fact that Black home ownership today is lower than it was pre-civil rights. Now, just to clarify that means when it was legal to discriminate, home ownership was higher than it is now. If that doesn't tell you something is wrong, then you must be from another planet, because that really speaks to this issue of disparity, this huge gap between Black America and white America. And it inspires me. Yes, I'm one person, but all it takes is one person to inspire others. And it inspires me to the point where I've always wondered, one, why that continues to exist. And, I obviously have my reasons and I could list them, but we don't have much time to go into all that. But the one thing I do know is it inspires me enough to say, I need to try to do something about it. I'm very excited that, at U.S. Bank, I have a leader that allows me the freedom to say what's on my mind. And that particular day, when I saw where the home ownership was for Black Americans, I was talking a lot. And, he kind of took a step back and just said, Lenny, he goes, well, let's do something about it. And the reality of it is, I think it was that day where, I wanted to gather members of my team and really have a discussion on how can we change the paradigm? How can we get a new result? How can we impact this community? How can we do our part? And maybe others will follow our lead. So we kind of came up with this concept of a dream initiative. And there are many components to it, but ultimately what it does is it brings recognition to this gap. It brings recognition to all of the things that may have contributed to that gap. It also puts together a comprehensive strategy to address that gap. And we're very proud of that because we know that it's one coming from the heart and it's coming from a place of possibility. When you think about all of this, the one thing that I can tell you is, what we're dealing with here, truthfully, is nothing more than bias. And I've said all along that, when you're dealing with bias, you have to understand that you're dealing with a situation that clearly, for whatever reason, sees limitations before possibilities. And if you're dealing with a situation where you allow limitations to come before possibilities, that's what creates bias. So how do you fix that? You fix that by addressing the limitations. You address the limitations by education. You address the limitations by financial literacy. You address the limitations by making sure that people who work in these communities look like these communities. You address these limitations by taking a look at your programs and your products and see whether or not there are enhancements that you can do. Ultimately, our goal is to attack those biases, to erase them, to make them go away. So the target is whatever is a limitation, whatever is preventing it from happening, whatever it is that's preventing it from becoming a possibility. And homeownership, that's a possibility. It should be a possibility. It should be a possibility for each and every person, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their gender, regardless of where they come from. It's their right. It's their possibility. Who are we to take it away from them?
That is so true. And it's also the seat you're in, right, helps drive these types of initiatives and brings them to the field so that many of us have the opportunity to really go out there and know that we're backed by an executive team who is going to be able to put that out in the market, right? And when you talk about limitations, we in the industry, and I do not work for U.S. Bank, so full disclosure, but having an executive team that really fosters that spirit in any organization only empowers those that are servicing the local market. So thank you for providing that answer. So with that being said, yeah, go ahead, Lenny, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, no problem. Go ahead.
So with that being said, you have helped many throughout your career. And as I mentioned before, you've been an inspiration to myself, Vanessa, and Chantel. And in fact, I will share a little tidbit about where you've inspired me and where I would sit there and look at you, right? Many times, you have someone in your life or that comes into your career and you always just from afar admire them. And so you've held that for me, including as a parent. I know I ran into you many times in, the football stadiums, and then I followed after you with my own child in high school football. So you definitely served a tremendous inspiration for me personally and professionally. So with that being said, what would you like your legacy to be?
Wow. Well, first and foremost, let me just say this. Very kind words from all of you to say that I'm an inspiration to you. But, truth be known, you inspire me. And the reason I say that is because the three of you are dynamic. And I'm always in awe by the tenacity, the persistence that each of you always seems to maintain. I mean, I've never, and if you do, I've never seen it, but I've never seen you down. I've never seen you dejected. I always see you positive, and I always see you representing. So I obviously admire that greatly, and that inspires me. That obviously motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing when I see individuals such as yourself continuing to fight forward and make some wonderful achievements. So let me say that first and foremost. As far as my legacy, you know, I'll get in front of younger groups and I tell them all the time, you know, the one thing that's a fact, the one thing that is an absolute fact is all the material things that you gather during your time on this earth they won't go with you. You know, that's just not the way it works. But what you can take with you is that feeling that you made a difference, that you changed a life, that you impacted a life, or that you saved a life. You can take that with you. Now, some people may not say that's a material gain, but it's the best type of gain that there is, because it's something that's heartfelt and something that's real. And it's also something that can go on generation to generation to generation after you are long gone. So if I were to actually define my legacy, I want to make sure that while I'm here, those who say, gosh, you know, that Lenny guy, he did this, he helped this, he influenced this, he inspired that, then you know what? I can check that box and say my work is done. Now, of course, that also comes with the responsibility of being a good man, being a good father, all of those things you put into the, if you put into the bubble and mix it up and you hope you come out okay. But I do, since you mentioned my son, I felt an obligation as a Black man to make sure that my son understood what it's like to be a Black man. And I wanted him to, obviously grow up and fight hard for what he wants and feel as though that anything is possible. And you know what? I'm proud of him. He's a great young man. My father passed away 3 years ago. And I tell people all the time, he was my hero. He was a military man. He fought and served this country, and he fought and served this country at a time when a Black man coming back from the war didn't receive the same pomp and circumstance as some of the other soldiers did. I also know that after serving this country, my father came home and couldn't buy a home because he wasn't allowed to do that, because that was the way the rules were then. You could only live in a certain community. I remember that. I remember when my father took us into this particular community, and the very first night we were there, someone broke into our home, took all of our belongings, and wrote some welcome comments on the walls. I remember that. But through it all, the thing that I remember is my father never once gave up. He never gave up. He never said a bad word about anybody. He just stayed true to his mission, and that was to provide home ownership for his family any way that he possibly could. And he did it. He did it. And, I look at that and I say, well, gee, there's thousands of people just like that. Just like that. They may be Black, brown, it doesn't matter. They're out there. You know them, I know them. Their stories might be a little different, but their possibilities are the same. And somebody, each and every one of them are hoping that somebody will step into their life and, knock those limitations away and make that possibility a reality. So my legacy, that's it. That's it.
Well, you are definitely a living legacy in our eyes, in your family's eyes, at U.S. Bank, and you are phenomenal, Lenny. And you are our voice. And we always ask all our guests, what does a LeadHER mean to you?
You guys. You know, I mean, people have different variations and versions of leaders, and you know, I think a leader to me is someone who is also willing to follow. You know, because I'm not a believer that you only lead from the front. You can lead from the middle. You can lead from the back. I think a lot of it is, you know, what it is you have to say, and when you have to say it, and how you go about getting your audience to listen to what you're talking about. Leaders come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, and I've been blessed to have great employees. They make leading easy. And the reason is because they themselves are leaders also. And, you know, sometimes I get to just go along for the ride. That's all I can say.
Well, wow. I will say thank you so much, Lenny. I think you definitely have, you know, left what would be an amazing legacy. You've checked off several of those boxes. And we're a testament to it, all three of us. You've been a mentor, a friend. And, you know, I'm sure our viewership here with LeadHER Talks have enjoyed this very amazing interview with you. It's just been very heartfelt for me, holding back some tears here, seriously. And again, we hope all of you LeadHER Talks have gained a little bit more inspiration. I mean, just an amazing speaker here, Lenny McNeill, showcasing how we can celebrate some Black History Month. So we promise you that next week's LeadHER Talks is one you don't want to miss, as we still continue Black History Month, and rightfully so. So don't forget to like us, to share us, share our feeds with others, and invite additional leaders, should I say, to this forum. You know, we want to enrich, educate, inspire each and every one of you. So thank you. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Bye.
Bye.